Southern Cross Austereo has unveiled its new branding as management beds down the merger of the two groups. Now, this is the new logo. Each colour apparently represents a sub-brand of the business: radio, TV, digital, entertainment, research and sales. It was unveiled a short time ago at the group's annual conference on the Gold Coast. CEO Reece Holleran has also used the gathering to push the benefits of the merger to ad buyers, saying they'll have a one-stop shop for cross-platform deals reaching 95% of the country. I spoke to Mr Holleran a short time ago.
I think one of the great things about bringing these two platforms together is the ability for advertisers to access a multiplicity of media in solving their business problems. Now, that means that literally, if they talk to any of our sales force when they're out there talking to them in advertising agencies, they can then go back to our various business units and access all the resources they need to do to put together a true multi-platform, multimedia solution to their business needs.
Are there financial benefits in buying across the Southern Cross Austereo assets?
Well, we think the financial benefits are really found for advertisers because the advertisers will get better results.
Okay, I know it's early days, but have you seen success within your sales team of being able to sell across the metro and regional stations?
Well, it's an interesting question. As you know, we have been a regional television and radio provider now for the last near 4 years. So it's not a recent proposition for our company. In local markets in regional Australia, right around the country, advertisers have been accessing both radio and television solutions to their business problems. So this isn't a new thing for us. This is an extension, and we're taking this now to a national platform.
In terms of the new brand, you've chosen to basically just combine the names and logos of the original two companies. Why did you go down that path?
Well, I think that we didn't just sort of look at it and say, let's just put two names together. We felt overwhelmingly when we purchased Austereo that company had an enormous amount of equity in the name Austereo. We thought it was a great business brand. We thought that in terms of the staff that worked at Austereo have an enormous amount of pride and a great love for that brand as well. So, you know, from our point of view, putting the two names together and the two businesses to come up with today's announcement of Southern Cross Austereo seemed to be pretty smart business.
All right, so there obviously wasn't a consideration of dropping the Austereo brand or changing to something completely new. Did you, though, consider dropping Southern Cross?
Look, we thought about all of those alternatives. Austereo's probably, as a singular name, is more known as a radio brand than a television brand. We brand our television stations across regional Australia, Southern Cross Television or Southern Cross 10. So when we put all of those factors together, we thought that the natural extension of all that was Southern Cross Austereo.
You stressed from the outset that you didn't want to meddle too much with Austereo's winning formula. Tell us how you're going to be making savings then for shareholders without upsetting the apple cart too much.
I think that's a good question. I think several things that we worked on, we looked at and we said, you know, let's look at the structure of the business and how do we operate this business as one company rather than two. We put together a steering group of people from across both businesses, and we've had a lot of steering group meetings and decided and looked at what would be the best operating model for this company. And, you know, essentially we've made a lot of savings out of taking out the duplication of those kind of corporate head roles that existed in both companies pre the merger. So, you know, in terms of where we are with the synergy savings, we're doing all right. We're ahead of where we thought we would be.
Have you uncovered any surprises, good or bad, since you took over?
You know, not really. We understand when you buy a big organisation and you do due diligence on it, you're not going to know absolutely everything. So, look, some things weren't necessarily a surprise to us, but there were probably some things about the company that we didn't understand. But most of the things that we've found, we've probably been surprised on the upside, been more pleasantly surprised than the reverse of that.
Is the state of the advertising market then, Reece, going to make it easier or harder for you to achieve the goals that you've set for yourself this year and into next?
Yeah, look, it's a bit hard to get a read on the advertising market. We'll release our results on August 24th and we'll probably make a far more comprehensive statement about, you know, where we're at as a company on that date. But what I can say is that the current environment is very challenging. I mean, as everybody knows, the retail is quite depressed at the moment, and that's not helping our business.
What are the most significant changes that you've made to management?
Well, you know, this was essentially a regional company which has now become a national company. So, you know, we had some centres where we were built this organisation on the Gold Coast, for example, where we had some positions exist. Now those positions are probably now more devolved towards Melbourne and Sydney. But, you know, this company is now a national organisation. We have considerable presence in Melbourne, we have a considerable presence in Sydney, we have a considerable presence in our Playout Centre for Television in Canberra, and we have a considerable presence in the Gold Coast. So, you know, we're pretty well diversified in terms of geography and in senior management positions. A lot of those things happen through natural attrition too.
So do you think then that there's going to be a need to sort of change the culture within some of those teams who up until this point have been working for a regional company, not a major national organisation?
Look, we think that the cultures of Austereo and Southern Cross are pretty compatible. They both have a very good focus on winning and producing quality local content. So the companies have far more in common than not. So, you know, my experience of being in this new combined group now across the last 3 months is I've been incredibly surprised at how similar they are and everyone's attitude towards being a national broadcasting company. So, you know, look, we'll make some changes around the edges of the values of this business, but they're all pretty much in keeping with the past.
Just one last question. As a media CEO, you must be watching the hacking scandal fall out with a great deal of interest. Now the potential for an overhaul in Australia of media ownership, of rules and of privacy. Where do you sit on the need for some kind of inquiry?
Oh, look, I think I've said this already. I think there's a convergence inquiry which is currently looking at media and how it operates in this country, and I really do think that that's probably enough at this point in time. So, you know, I'm a big fan of the idea that the convergence review should run its course, and we should look at what the recommendation and outcomes from that are.
So would you be concerned if the convergence review was extended to include content, that we'd have some kind of regulation of content?
Oh, look, I think any regulation around content is not a positive thing by and large.
Reece Holleran there. Let's get across some of the other media stories around this week with James Manning. James, starting with some of the most trusted brands have been revealed.
Yeah, Reader's Digest magazine does a survey every year of consumers, what they think are their trusted brands. 4 of the top 5 are sort of bathroom brands, if you like: Colgate, Dettol, Band-Aid and Panadol. The odd one out in that group was Cadbury, of course, something dear to the heart of many people.
Another trusted brand, you could say, is Harry Potter, which we spoke about last week. It was about to come out on the weekend, and it did what we thought it would do in terms of box office. To break some records. Became the biggest single day ever at the movies in Australia. $7 million it took. Then its 4-day weekend broke all records too. $18.3 million. We had an interesting story about Maxim. We've covered the story of the fact that this was going to launch in Australia, but one of the other stories I saw was that the whole magazine somehow got hacked into and leaked.
Yeah, it was put online. I guess that's what can happen. Perhaps someone had access to because they're making an iPad edition too, so they need to, you know, put up all the PDFs, and presumably someone got access to that. The magazine came out on Wednesday of this week. Jennifer Hawkins on the cover. Got a bit of a story in the magazine this week. People still can't quite see the business model there. It's a magazine that does seem a little bit dated to some media buyers we spoke to. Other editors of magazines thought, yeah, look, this might have worked great a decade ago, but the market will determine that, of course.
Okay. Just quickly, a column by Fairfax's Paul Sheehan on the questionable morality of MasterChef.
Yeah, it was interesting. It just shows you the passion that the viewers invest in this program. Who would have thought maybe Paul Sheen would be one of them? But they, you know, they do feel when the contestants get, you know, put under pressure, stuff like that. I'm a big fan of the show. I watch it a lot, and you tend to think those things. But I think you need to stand back and say, look, hang on a minute. This is television. It's entertainment.
So what's his problem with it?
Don't get too entwined. Well, I think he thinks that there's the demands of the medium are too harsh on the contestants, and they're putting too artificial an environment. The penalties on them, the emotional toll on them is perhaps too great, and it just maybe the producers need to back off a bit. But again, I think it's TV, it's entertainment. But
exactly, it's TV, it's entertainment.
That's the reaction the producers want from people. So I guess it's not a bad thing as far as they're concerned.
Okay, let's move on. Let's have a look at the ratings for week 29 in free-to-air. We're not really moving on actually because it's going to be all about MasterChef. We had Australia's Got Talent in the #1 spot for the week, but then MasterChef filling out. There was MasterChef on Monday, Wednesday, Sunday and Tuesday, and as well on Thursday. Then The Block was in 7th position, followed by 7 News Sunday in 8th, Dancing with the Stars in 9th place, and 7 News in the #10 spot this week. James, there's what, 6 or so people still left in MasterChef, so the series is, we're coming to the pointy end.
6, yeah. I think we've got 2 full more weeks before we'll get down to that. You know, there'll be I think the final 5 will go into that second last week, and it'll probably be 4 3, yeah,
for a bit longer.
We'll drag it on.
But you'd expect that MasterChef would be seeing pages like that from now until the end of the series.
Absolutely. You see 9 getting wise. They pulled out The Block. They're starting to rate The Block separate nights now, so it appears in the ratings now 5 or 6 times during the week instead of just getting that average for the whole week.
Subscription TV ratings for week 29. Top 5 sport programs first: Cowboys v West Tigers NRL game that came in at first, followed by Rabbitohs v the Roosters in second, and Knights versus the Cowboys in third. In the AFL, the Bulldogs v Carlton game was 4th in the ratings, while St Kilda versus West Coast came in at 5th position. In non-sport, Project Runway Australia was in the top spot, Killers coming in 2nd, America's Next Top Model in 3rd, followed by The Simpsons at 4th, and my favourite, Big Fat Gypsy Weddings, rounding out the top 5 this week. While we're speaking of subscription television, the Astra Awards Thursday night. We'll have all the details, I presume, next week.
We will, yep. Usual suspects up for awards. Australia's Next Top Model, Selling Houses Australia, which did very well last year. Grand Designs Australia up for the first time for its first series. Mediaweek,
unfortunately, not up for a gong, but maybe Sky News might win Channel of the Year, and we'll take the credit for that.
That'd be wonderful.
Because we're so good. James Manning, thank you as always. Thank you for coming in for the extra time today, an hour-long show.
Thanks, Kylie.
Might be doing that again, yeah. We'll see if there's any more scandals, and we'll do that again. That is, though, for this hour, all we have time for from the team here. Thank you very much for your company.